Maria, and the majority of
American,
yes.
So, I'm sorry about that. In terms of how to pay for it, she's leaning on a lot of things, on taxes on corporations, taxes on employers. She's saying that employers will just shift what they're paying for health insurance over to the government. Now, there is some question. You can look at that as an indirect tax on employees. Aside from that, she would also shift over what states and local governments currently spend on health care.
Maria, one thing that we don't hear much of, who specifically, what big voting bloc is saying, I want to toss out the insurance I have, start from scratch with Medicare for all? Because other Democratic candidates are certainly saying, we want to cover everybody, but not at the expense of you having to get rid of what you have.
Well, and most Americans, let's set the tables. Most Americans actually like their insurance, right? The ones that have access to it. They want their private
insurance. So who is this for?
I think she's actually looking towards future generations who are necessarily not actually eligible to vote yet, quite frankly. And I think the challenge is that she realizes that there's still costs that are spiraling when it comes to how we have existing healthcare coverage as it is. But that actually is not addressed. This idea that she wants to tax employers, that's a challenge because employers vote. Do their employees vote? Possibly not, right? So it's a slippery slope. And what she has to keep in mind, and what the Democrats need to keep in mind, is that in order for them to win 2020, they have to ensure that they are banking on suburban white women. They're the ones that came out to vote, and they voted last time because of their health care coverage, and they voted last time because of family separation. This idea that you might scrap what they actually believe is a necessity for them, that is really a slippery slope. And I could just see, sadly, the Trump campaign coming in and peeling off voter after voter just based on this alone.
Michael, the first email I got yesterday morning was from a big never Trumper who said, Elizabeth Warren has achieved the one thing I never thought possible. I read her plan, and I will be voting for President Trump.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, if it's a never Trumper, that's a tall order because that's not a wheelhouse they're willing to go to. But Elizabeth Warren gives them a pathway, gives them a rationale now to do that. And that's the concern that the Democrats need to have. I mean, the question I have is, so for Democrats, so what's so bad about Obamacare? I mean, I was in that fight. I know what that was like in 2009 and 2010. And I know the arguments the Democrats made then. So what's changed now? So you're going to take that effort and you're just going to toss it out. You're going to tell employers, like we said about doctors, you can keep it if keep them if you have them. Now you're going to say, well, not only that, we're just going to take away all the insurance you have. That is not a recipe for success next year. Next year is not going to be a race that's going to be surrounded by tentacles of health care. I mean, you can have that discussion all day long, but that's going to play right into the wheelhouse for Donald Trump because the election for a lot of people is not about the specifics of policy. It's about the nature of and the direction of the country.
Mark, a recipe for success is focusing on swing states. Right. Swing states like Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, states with a huge amount of voters that are union members. Union members have fought, they've given up income because they care so much about health care. Does that not factor in here?
I think it factors in to some degree. I think, look, I mean, the never Trump part of the discussion, the swing state part of the discussion, is something that I think Elizabeth Warren has sort of tried to kick down the road a little bit. I mean, this is about the sort of liberal activist wing of the Democratic Party that has driven a lot of the conversation over the last several months. It has given her kind of an uninterrupted trajectory, and I think it's to her disadvantage that she's waited this long to sort of put the sort of payment scheme out into the public because it's called so much attention to it. I think, look, I think there is a lot of I think a lot of this is aspirational. I think she has sort of been in an aspirational space around this. I think if you look at the great philosopher queen, Kate McKinnon, on Saturday Night Live, when she did, I guess they did the cold open with she was Elizabeth Warren, and she said, look, once you get into the trillions, it's fake. It doesn't really matter. Which, look, I mean, it was Saturday Night Live. It was a comedy show, but I think it also got to a certain truth about this, that this conversation has taken place in an abstract place, and once you get into this realm, it gets a little bit dicier.
Kate McKinnon also said that she has the stamina of a stay-at-home mom with 5 kids, each who play a different sport, and I thought that was a brilliant comparison.
They're all different characters.
Is this a point, though, now that she's laid out the plan and how to pay for it, when things have to get real, when all of those people running against her can finally take a real swing?
So I think we're drawing this narrative, and this is what's really important, is that all of them have really smart policy, but they are trying to beat Trump against policy. Al Gore had great policy. We actually need a candidate that's actually explaining a vision of the future that's an alternative to where we are. And unless they recognize and they talk about this idea, it's like, this is my big picture, this is my big plan, but I still need Congress's buy-in. I need to make sure that Congress will sign this letter of law. Then it moves it from a mandate, but it actually says, look, let's elevate our conversation, but let's actually talk about the issues, because the country right now is going off the rails, but this is how I feel that we can move it forward. But reminding the American people, Elizabeth Warren cannot be sworn in tomorrow and pass her health care law. She has to remind folks that she needs the buy-in from Congress. And I think that would go a long way to basically easing this unrest that people may have about how whoever holds that Oval Office is going to impact their health care.
But going off the rails, does that mean that voters are going to say, let's blow up the system? Because when you talk about vision for the future, do people really want things that radically different?
Well, it's an interesting question, because there is some thinking inside the Trump campaign about Elizabeth Warren and what she potentially could mean in a head-to-head. Just as Donald Trump represented sort of the asymmetrical perspective politically on the right, she represents an asymmetrical perspective on the left, where her party is largely around, okay, Obamacare is good, we're there, we'll fix it, right? She's like, no, let's just throw it all out and start over, and let's go after Wall Street, let's go. She's got these, to your point, she's got these big plans, right? These big aspirational ideas, which kind of, in that space, we have these two asymmetrical players in a presidential election. That will be an interesting dynamic for the country to sort of swallow and to take in and figure out exactly, to the broader question, which direction do we want to go in?
And right now, and then that's where you get back into the swing states. I mean, this is big systemic change, which has been her message. And look, the economy has not done as well in places like Wisconsin and Michigan and Pennsylvania recently, where Donald Trump might be vulnerable.
Well, we've got exactly 1 year for this all to play out, and trust me, we'll be paying attention. Thank you all so much. Talking healthcare. Next, we're talking guns.